Deadbeat dads and shonen anime name a more iconic duo.
もっと話せる？後で。
難しいな。俺忙しいし。
In most shonen anime, the protagonist has a horrible dad. Examples that come to mind are Gon Freaks, Baki, Edward Elric, and most importantly, Monkey D. Luffy. Most shonen have one diabolical father, but One Piece is the exception, with multiple diabolical dads. And today, we are going to go through all of them until we find the definitive worst dad in One Piece. Dragon is your default deadbeat dad. He abandoned Luffy, which meant Garp had to raise Luffy all by himself, but Garp ain't doing all that. So Luffy was essentially raised by mountain bandits. Aside from allowing your son to be raised by criminals, Dragon left Luffy with no mother. Dragon even made sure Luffy didn't know he existed. Luffy really found out about Dragon being his father at the end of Eni's lobby, which is wild. Luffy didn't even know how his father looked for 17 years of his life. Now yes, Dragon is a revolutionary who is fighting against the world government, which makes him somewhat of a good person, but he was still absent for the majority of Luffy's life. Dragon can be a good revolutionary and a bad father at the same time. The two aren't mutually exclusive, but Dragon is still the most redeemable father on this list, simply because he saved Luffy's life in Logtown. However, I'd say that's the bare minimum of a father. Growing up alone without a father figure is tough. But Shanks stepped up and decided to be the role model and father figure that Luffy never had, instilling most of Luffy's values in him from a young age, which can be seen early on in the series from how Luffy handled the situation with Bellamy in Jaya. But Shanks still isn't beating the deadbeat dad allegations. I know One Piece Film Red isn't canon, but Yuta is canon, and she has been referenced in the manga and anime as being Shanks' adopted daughter, and she even visited Fuchsia Village too, just like in the movie. So I'm just gonna take the movie's events of her backstory for what it is, and if it is proven to not be accurate to a canon backstory in the future, then I'll gladly concede on Shanks being a bad dad. The reason Shanks abandoned Yuta in Elysia was so Yuta didn't have to live with the fact that she murdered everybody. He also did it so she had access to become the greatest singer, even though all she really wanted was to be the musician for Shanks' crew. It's a rather innocent thought process, but it was extremely unrealistic as we had found out. Yuta grew up to hate pirates, and especially Shanks and the crew. The only people she had known to be family had abandoned her, and she was told they were the reason everybody died, leaving her with an intense hatred and destroying her trust forever, leading to her developing very extreme and dangerous ideologies. And Yuta eventually found out that she was the reason everybody died anyways, so that made the situation so much worse, and she didn't have Shanks to confide in. Overall, Shanks is up there with the goats of horrible dads in One Piece, but we still don't know how much of this is canon, so it's still up in the air, and I'll try to be as charitable as possible, since Shanks had good intentions despite the disastrous outcome. Yasop is the sniper of the deadbeat pirates, and also Usopp's dad. Dragon and Shanks was somewhat redeemable, but Yasop is just straight up a horrible dad in every category. Yasop left his son with his dying wife because of the call to adventure. I understand the importance of following your dreams in One Piece, but some priorities are just so much more important than having your child grow up without a dad, resulting in Usopp lying to his mother on her deathbed that Yasop is coming home.
It's true! He always said he'd come back for us and take us with him when you got better, didn't he, Mom?
A realization I had about Yasop sealed the deal for me. Yasop often visited the East Blue with the crew to go visit Fuchsia Village, and he'd brag about how great his son is to Luffy as well. This just means Yasop had a ton of opportunities to visit Usopp, and he still didn't do it, even after he learned that his wife had died. That's real scum behavior. I'm gonna have to give joint second to these two demons right here, Kaido and Big Mom. Big Mom, I'm not gonna lie, needs a whole video dedicated to herself because she really had 85 children, and the amount of damage caused to each child is a case study in itself. Big Mom murdered one of her children during one of her hunger pangs. And that's just one we've seen on screen. It is very possible that this happened before as well. And before we take a look at the trauma she put her children through, we must question the existence of some of the races she did it with. That's a tongue-taughter. This should be a crime. I don't even know how this is possible. Big Mom is for the streets. She's willing to do it with anything that breathes. Now, this isn't about how freaky she is, so let's get into the war crime she's committed against her children. Whole Cake Island. the only arc in anime where the villain and protagonist work together to stop the main antagonist by feeding her a giant cake. Big Mom is a walking liability, a literal force of nature, tearing down her own country during her hunger pangs, constantly putting her children at risk unless they are very careful with dealing with her dramatic mood changes. But at the end of the day, Big Mom is not a dad, and I forgot that halfway through recording this, so I'm keeping her on the list anyways. Everything Kaido did to Yamato was comically evil. The moment Yamato claimed to be Odin, Kaido's biggest enemy was the moment Kaido beat Yamato multiple times, putting exploding handcuffs on her to ensure she doesn't leave the country, chained her to a post where she was beaten, and finally left her in a cave for 1 month without food. This has got to be the most evil thing I've seen happen on the list so far, because with Kaido, he's very much aware of his actions, but with Big Mom, she's just mentally ill. Vince Milk Judge is objectively the worst dad in One Piece. This is not up for debate, it's just a fact. He watched his son get tormented by genetically enhanced freaks for years.
You're such a disgrace. Alright, Monty.
Before throwing Sanji in a prison for 6 months, forcing Sanji to wear a metal mask the whole time, literally taking away his humanity. The worst part is that years after Sanji escaped and found freedom, Judge came back into Sanji's life to force him into a political marriage, or else he'd kill Zeph and everyone at the Baratie. Judge really is a D1 hater. He made sure Sanji wouldn't leave the island by putting explosive handcuffs on him and constantly belittling Sanji by saying he was a failure and how he never viewed Sanji as his child. But all the pain and humiliation Sanji went through just made the moment where he saved Judge so much better. Seeing Judge cry, I couldn't help but laugh. It's like when you see a character you really hate get a sad backstory. This was the best revenge possible. I'm glad I could end the list on a good note after all the pain we just witnessed. Well, that's the end of the video. Like the video, comment your opinions or even your own list if you disagree, and subscribe for more content. But also check out my other videos if you enjoyed what you saw.